Hello and welcome, Exiles, to my final update on the Oshabi character. Now, you'll notice we're starting right about the part where we're going to get to the final phase of Uber Shaper. And the reason I'm doing this is to show how fast I kill Uber Shaper, then to show how fast I kill 2K ToTA mobs, to give some people perspective, just to help get rid of the lies. Because a lot of people, before I got the 2K rating, were saying that ToTA mobs at 2K have HP cap, they have billions of HP, you won't be able to tank them. They're saying some crazy things, and ultimately, they're just full of it. The ToTA mobs aren't actually that tanky, and I'm going to showcase how fast I kill Uber Shaper just to give that perspective. So Uber Shaper is going to do, he's going to do his whatever phase. We're going to kill him. You'll see how fast we killed Uber Shaper there. It was like, I don't know, half his HP when he killed him. We killed him in a couple of seconds, right? That's like, I don't know, 100 million damage we had to do, 150 mil damage, whatever it was. That's how fast we killed Uber Shaper. Now, for context, we have a 2K rating ToTA match, which, go ahead and buy these random people just because we need bodies on the floor to capture things, because I don't want to have to capture everything alone. Whatever, 2 things are fine. Anyways, 2K rating, you can see down here. We'll go ahead and we'll fight Kalovo, I guess. We'll put our people on the field. And I'll go ahead and show how fast I'm killing these monsters here, just to give you an idea of their tank. So we'll go ahead and this is a... that was like a Storm Conduit or something. You can see how fast I killed it. It's clearly not this HP cap, billion HP mob. People reference the turtle as being super tanky, for example. The turtle's more tanky than, like, for example, the Thunderbird has maybe like 150 HP of a turtle, but let's say the Thunderbird's like 20 mil HP and maybe the turtle's 100 mil HP. They're not in the billions. This whole thing where people are saying you need some insane, ridiculous characters like you do for Delve, it's not even comparable to that level of tank or difficulty scaling from my experience, at least, playing it up to 2K, playing a character that doesn't have, I don't know, this character might have, let's say, somewhere in the range of 30 to 80 million DPS, depending on, like, conditions of, like, optimal situation, whatever. I don't freaking know. The point I'm trying to make is we're not dealing in billions here. Another point I want to make is, as for how much damage these guys deal, yeah, they end up hitting decently hard, but it's not like something you can't become tanky enough for. My character isn't particularly tanky, and I got hit by a lot of different mechanics. Sometimes I died in one hit. Sometimes I you know, it took half my HP or a third of my HP or whatever. The point I'm trying to make is, with a character that didn't really get that much mitigation, at the end of the day, this character has 9k life with like no mitigation layers aside from like 95 evade. At the end of the day, if they're not one-hitting a 9k life character with 75 res, they're not some obscene damage number. They're things where if I actually tried to make a tanky character, I wouldn't be dying like at all during this mechanic. I think people got some built-up memory of Overwhelm cooking their characters when their character, all their defense for Fizz was like some PDR, so it like worked really well against them, even though if they had, you know, other defensive layers, like just having a bigger EHP pool, having things like Flesh and Stone, which I'm not sure Flesh and Stone DR even existed in ToTA League. It might have been more recent than that. Arctic Armor, stuff that works against Overwhelm. All of a sudden, a lot of these things that people like hyped up as these over dangerous mechanics, they really don't actually hit that hard. So anyways, that's the start of this. I just wanted to preface, because I got told going into this, people were telling me like things like, oh, billions of HP, you can't build enough tanks, so you have to go ZHP. They were saying all these things, and ultimately, from my experience, A, they don't have billions of HP, and B, the damage scaling isn't that obscene. From what I can tell, it's very, very linear. As I went up through the ranks between rank 200 to 2K, I think around 200s when they first became level 83 mobs, it was a very consistent increase. It didn't feel like at any point they spiked or got some extra upgrades or anything like that. So yeah, I just wanted to say that ToTA, if you heard somebody telling you need some extremely OP character, you need a pretty good character for ToTA or for 2K ToTA, but you don't need some like exceptionally broken blah 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 blah. All right. Anyways, as for the review of the ToTA mechanics, I just wanted to put a few thoughts out there in case GGG wants some feedback. Overall, my thoughts on ToTA. There are a lot of things I like about ToTA with some like like a few very glaring problems. I'm going to go over the problems because if they want to add this to core in PoE 2 or back into PoE 1, I hope they would address some of these things. Number one is when you're ranking up, you can't choose your rank. So what happens is you'll get to a point where your character is kind of meeting your upper threshold of what ToTA rank you can do. And at that point, you can no longer play the mechanic because what you're essentially going to be doing is you're just taking a gamble on whether or not you win rounds. And you'll end up in a situation where ToTA finally does give you that huge RNG, good reward, and you're going to be gambling on whether or not you can even succeed at it. For example, one of my chatters found a mirror and he lost the mirror round because he was right about that threshold where his character started to not be viable, and he just got cooked. And there might be a situation where people want to keep playing ToTA, but instead they have to go and force themselves to go play something else because they can't choose to do the ToTA rank that their character would be comfortable and feel good farming at. Because in order to do that, you have to take a bunch of time to intentionally lose rounds, to force your rank down, and stuff like that. You can't choose what difficulty you play at. The other issue this has is if you make a second character, let's say right now, my character, I spent a bunch of time on this character. I farmed a bunch of currency. I can afford to invest in my second character. My character can be very, very powerful right out the gate. But my second character has to start at rank 100 ToTA rating. And that basically means if I invested into my second character and made a really strong character, I'd have this huge chore where I have to do rating that is not remotely challenging whatsoever. And it's just a kill the mobs, channel, and wait. Kill the mobs, channel, and wait until I'm getting to try to push towards that hard rating where the character's power level would maybe be somewhat challenged or somewhat questioned, or even to the point where the rewards would be somewhat relevant to feel worth for a character of that investment. So that's my first feedback. Be able to choose the rank you play at for A, being able to roll a second character and be able to go straight to a difficult content or more rewarding content to match your power level of your second character, or B, the part where you want to be playing ToTA for an extended period of time, but if you get basically to that upper limit of power, all of a sudden ToTA is very, very unrewarding because you have to like intentionally lose to get to the part where you can consistently do it. Or if you're running the mechanic, there's a high chance you lose on rounds that have good rewards because you couldn't choose to like farm at a more comfortable level of gameplay. It's basically like what's a good example of this? Like let's say if you were mapping and you went to go do your nightmare map to get your initial like 4th or 5th scarab slot, and then all of a sudden the game said you can't run T16s, you can only run nightmare maps now because you've achieved this difficulty. Until you lose 10 times in a nightmare map, you can't go back to do a T16. Like, yeah, you forced yourself to do that harder content to unlock that extra square, but you'd like to farm in a more comfortable location like T16s, or maybe even lower than that. Maybe your character really, you want to do a more comfortable like Essence yellow map farm, something like that. It would feel weird if you couldn't choose to do the slightly easier content and more comfortably be able to farm with your character to progress your power level to then farm the higher content, if that makes sense. So anyways, choosing the difficulty, number one. Number two, for ToTA concerns, is the 5-second stun from the channeling the totem. It feels really bad to have your character become unusable for 5 seconds if you get hit while channeling the totem. I don't know what other downside you could go for. Maybe it could be something where your character can't channel totems for the next 5 seconds, but you can still play the game. Something else besides a 5-second, your character is unusable. You just have to watch your character get jumped on by a bunch of guys and you can't defend yourself or anything. I don't know. I'm not a big fan of the heavy stun in the ToTA or in the PoE 2 with the sprint stun into heavy stun. I'm not a fan of it in ToTA either. I'm a hater when it comes to heavy stun. Number 3 on my list is making the character power matter. Having the win condition be you don't have to deal any damage, you just need to channel the totem is part of the reason why ToTA boils down to if you can just void sphere the enemies in the center, the most efficient way is just to do that with a character that has no damage, no investment, is a 1D character with just basically some avoidance gear. And that's the most effective way to do the mechanic because you just put them in the center and then you can destroy their totems. It feels weird. The other part of this coin is you are actively punished for killing the enemy. The enemies respawn so quickly that I could kill an enemy right here and then walk over to the totem here. And by the time I walk to the totem, that enemy has already respawned. And therefore, killing the enemy was a mistake because instead I should have just left the enemy here and gone to channel the totem, because that way the enemy wouldn't be right next to the totem to defend it. And you're actively punished for doing the thing where your character was good enough to kill the monster or the enemy. So like the respawn timers, how fast they are, they actively punish you for being able to have a character strong enough to kill the enemies. You're better off just having the enemy be somewhere else and then go channeling the totem. It feels weird. So yeah, so few things are: choose your difficulty, have your character power matter. Maybe you have a way of killing the totems with your skills or something that is decoupled from just not needing power in order to complete the mechanic. It feels weird that you can have a character with basically no actual scaling be able to channel the totem and it dies, and it doesn't matter that your character was good or not. And then you, on top of that, get actively punished for shooting the enemy, destroying the enemy, and then the enemy gets to get teleported into the defending position, which is the optimal place for the enemy to be. It punishes you for killing the enemy because they respawn so fast. And then choosing your difficulty of the depth. That's probably my biggest points about ToTA. I really like the atmosphere. I like the tournament aspect. There's some other things where I could say, like, for example, the loot from ToTA. We've gotten a lot of power creep in loot over the years for PUE. At this point, its loot is very, very, very subpar. Outside of this event, basically adding in the Ascendancy tattoos, if they weren't there, the loot table, and not considering, and if it wasn't for like sake of people intentionally investing into tattoos because they're going to be worth something in standard, the loot per hour for it is very, 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 very subpar. Most of the times, the best reward I get was occasionally 5 chaos here, 5 chaos there. The raw div I got between going from 100 rating to 2k rating, I think I got 3 divs as a stack 3 times, and I think I got a raw div I think about 6 times. So I got roughly about 15 raw div going from 100 rating to 2k rating. My slash played is almost 4.5 days. And that majority of that was just me doing ToTA. It was a very like slow, monotonous push up through the rating. It takes a while to channel the totems. It takes a while to complete tournaments. And the raw like loot generation from it is just very, very subpar. Maybe if it was more specialized in the tattoos and the tattoos were more valuable or something, I don't know. They can figure that out if they decide to make it go core, but it's just has been out power crept loot wise because of how much loot is in the base game currently. By comparison, you feel a little bit stupid farming ToTA. I definitely did feel a little bit stupid. With a small caveat of the cheese builds, I think maybe did okay because they could win rounds a bit faster by sucking all the enemies away from the totems, so they could do it at maximum speed. But even then, I would still question the loot if they were to add it core into the base game as is. So yeah, that's some of my thoughts on ToTA. I don't know if GGG was doing this event to get some people's feedback on ToTA or just doing it for a short little event that people enjoyed. I certainly had some fun playing it. But yeah, I just wanted to give my feedback for that reason. Now, as for the character, the Tornado Shot Oshabi character, we did some updates since the last time I showed you, mainly changing the pathing to include some split personalities, along with a Lethal Pride right here, which I don't remember if I had that on the most recent video or not, and I included an Onslaught tattoo. The best Lethal Pride I could get during the event was this one with 15% strength, but if you were playing a regular trade league, there are some better jewels with more percent strength in closer notables. I was also considering eventually going for Avity, the Forbidden Flesh and Flame jewel that would give me accuracy per frenzy. I was going to swap this to a max frenzy charge tattoo. I was going to do some other things like go for max frenzies and thus give us a big multiplier on accuracy and have the more damage from having the additional frenzies. And that would allow us to go blood magic because we have power charges, generation from Tornado Shot, and we were going to be able to get frenzy charges from Avity, so I wouldn't need Mana Forge Frenzy anymore, and therefore I could go blood magic and scale a bit more life, a bit more evasion, stuff like that, go for the 10 evasion per 10 life. Ultimately, that would just take a bit more min-maxing. The prices on the Avity Forbidden Flame were just a bit too rich for my blood, so I didn't go for it. But yeah, this is what the character ended up like. I had a lot of fun playing it. Min-maxing things, if you wanted to take the character further, is realistically, you should go for melding 90 res and get your chaos res somewhere else, so you can go for a sapphire flask, and your max res would be based around your cold res, scaling, and then you get max res jewel suffixes other places. Another thing you could go for is sublime vision grace, which gives you more evasion scaling and gives you another additional frenzy for the accuracy scaling from Avity. That'd be probably some of the min-maxy stuff I would have gone for. But I didn't get around to it, and this is just where the character ended up. I had a lot of fun playing the build, and I think I might try to squeeze in making one more Freesia build before we get the announcement for the next league. Yeah. So that's the conclusion for today. Hopefully you guys enjoyed. I had a lot of fun with this character, and we're going to try to play one more starting today on stream. Thanks for watching, Exiles. Take care and peace out. Have a good rest of your evening.